Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we will be looking at AQA A-Level Psychology Specimen 1 Paper 3 Example Answers for Gender, which you need to know for AQA A-Level Psychology. I hope you enjoy this video and find it helpful. Let's get started. Please note that these answers have been produced with knowledge of the mark scheme but have not been approved by the mark scheme themselves. There are 3 assessment objectives, AOs, in psychology. In this video they are color-coded. AO1 Knowledge, purple. AO2 Application, blue. AO3 Evaluation, red and green. Question 1. Explain what is meant by androgyny. 1 mark. A personality type that is characterized by a balanced high-level combination of both masculine and feminine traits, attitudes, or behaviors. Read the item and then answer the questions that follow. In a study of androgyny, a group of 118-year-old students completed a self-report sex role inventory. The inventory gave 2 sets of scores, a femininity score and a masculinity score. Each set of scores was on a scale of 0 to 20, with 0 representing no masculinity or no femininity and 20 representing extreme masculinity or extreme femininity. The researchers calculated measures of central tendency for the masculinity scores. They found that the mean masculinity score was 10.3, the median masculinity score was 9.5 and the mode masculinity score was 7. Question 2. Sketch a graph to show the most likely distribution curve for the masculinity scores in this study. Label the axes of your graph and mark on it the positions of the mean, median, and mode. 3 marks. 1 mark for shape of curve with tail to the right. 1 mark for axis labels, masculinity, score on horizontal axis, number of students, and frequency on vertical axis. 1 mark for positioning the mean, median and mode appropriately in relation to one another. Question 3. What sort of distribution does your graph show? 1 mark. Positive skew. Question 4. Explain 1 limitation of a self-report technique. 2 marks. 1 limitation of asked report techniques is that they lack objectivity and has a high risk of researcher bias. The interviewer's personal biases and opinions can influence the direction of the conversation, potentially leading to skewed results. This can impact the objectivity of the data collected. Question 5. Which one of the following statements about Freud's psychoanalytic theory of gender development is false? Write the letter of your chosen answer in your answer booklet. 1 mark. Freud suggested that little boys A. are afraid of their father. B. are jealous of their father. C. are jealous of their mother. D. come to internalize their father's views. E. have a romantic attachment to their mother. C. are jealous of their mother. Question 6. Describe and evaluate Kohlberg's explanation of gender development. 16 marks. Kohlberg's theory is based on Piaget's theory of cognitive development, which argues that children's thinking changes as they grow up, as the brain becomes more capable of complicated, abstract, and logical thinking. Kohlberg's theory suggested that a child's understanding of gender, including what counts as appropriate gender roles, behaviors, and attitudes, becomes more sophisticated with age as the child matures. Kohlberg identifies 3 key stages of gender development. Stage 1 is gender identity development around 2 to 3 years. At 2 years old, children have an awareness of their own gender and can correctly identify themselves as a boy or girl. At 3 years old, most children can identify other people as male or female, but this is based on superficial assumptions such as appearances, as thinking has little internal logic. Children are not aware that sex is permanent, e.g., when I grow up, I want to be a mummy. They may often choose incorrect labels as they may not realize boys become men or girls become women. Stage 2 is gender stability around 4 years. Children begin to realize and have an understanding that their gender is fixed and stays the same over time, with boys growing into men and girls growing into women. They still get confused by external appearances that suggest someone is of a different sex and are not aware that gender is consistent between different situations, e.g., they may describe a man with long hair as a woman. They believe that a person can change sex if they engage in activities associated with the opposite gender, e.g., female cannot be a builder, and lack the ability to conserve or use logic. Stage 3 is gender constancy around 6 years. Children recognize that gender remains consistent and constant across time and situations, and they can now apply this to other people's gender as well as their own. They are no longer fooled by changes in outward external appearance, e.g., if a man is wearing a dress or a woman is wearing a suit, they may think this is unusual, but they will still know that the person is a man or woman. Children begin to seek out gender-appropriate role models to identify with and imitate, who they feel have qualities similar to their own concept of themselves, as they now have a fully developed and internalized concept of gender and seek evidence to confirm this. They may also show preference to same-sex playmates as well as gender-stereotyped activities. There are several processes involved in transition through stages: maturation, socialization, lessening, egocentrism. A strength of Kohlberg's theory as a cognitive explanation of gender development is that it is supported by research. Slaby and Fry, 1975, conducted a study using 2 to 5-year-olds and asked them to watch split-screen images of males and females performing the same tasks. They found that younger children spent roughly the same amount of time watching both sexes, whereas older children, who had reached gender constancy, spent more time looking at the model who was the same sex as them. This is a strength because it suggests that Kohlberg was correct in his assumption that children who have acquired constancy will actively seek gender-appropriate models. A limitation of Slaby and Fry's study when supporting Kohlberg's stages of gender is that gender consistency appeared to start younger than Kohlberg's theory predicted. In early infancy, boys and girls begin to show preferences for their gender-related toys, which casts potential doubts on Kohlberg's idea of universal stages of development. This is a limitation because it suggests that Kohlberg's ages of gender development were overestimated. A strength of Kohlberg's theory as a cognitive explanation of gender development is that there is research to support for Stage 1, gender labeling. Thompson, 1975, found that 2-year-olds were correct 76% of the time in recognizing their own gender, however children aged 3 were correct 90% of the time. This is a strength because it suggests that an increased ability to recognize their own label through age that follows his pattern of stages. A limitation of Kohlberg's theory as a cognitive explanation of gender development is that there is research that challenges the idea that an interest in gender-appropriate behavior only develops around age 6. Bussey and Bandura, 1999, found that children as young as 4 reported feeling good about playing with gender-appropriate toys and bad about doing the opposite. This is a limitation because it suggests that children start to demonstrate gender-appropriate behavior before they have reached 6 years old, which contradicts Kohlberg's theory. A limitation of Kohlberg's theory as a cognitive explanation of gender development is that it is socially sensitive. His theory proposes it is cognition and thinking that determines gender, and this raises the possibility that people may view those with gender dysphoria in a discriminatory way. They may be seen as choosing to behave in a socially deviant way, which may lead to less tolerance of transsexuals or even stretch into assuming gay and lesbians are also choosing their sexuality. This is a limitation because it suggests that Kohlberg's theory, while aiming to explain gender development, may inadvertently reinforce societal biases and prejudices against individuals who do not conform to traditional gender norms. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content like this. Bye.